it going, guys? Kris here with another Battlefield 5 gun guide for you, and today we're going to be checking out the good old Madsen machine gun, a pretty unique LMG that got added to the game during Battlefest. Prior to the First World War, quite a lot of machine gun designs were being put together, along with the Danish Madsen LMG, first serviced in 1902. Though unlike a lot of other designs around at the time, the Madsen became very successful, essentially being the first LMG to be mass produced and sold all over the world, and it did so over a pretty short space of time, available in 12 different calibers, while finding its way into over 34 countries' militaries. Large numbers of Madsen machine guns were manufactured in Denmark and exported from the early 1900s right the way up until the 1950s, spanning over both world wars and many other conflicts in between, playing a vital role in many armies, with some even fixing the gun to vehicles and aircraft as a primary support weapon. But its story didn't end there, because although production of the weapon ceased about 70 years ago, it's still been used many years after, even to this day in some areas of the world, with several units being found recently in Africa and South America. The gun itself was considered to be pretty reliable and robust, not really changing much over its lengthy production life, with the later designs still being very similar to the original, right the way back in the early 1900s. Of course, it was phased out in many militaries in favour of newer advancements of weapon technology, but its unique design and high success made it a pretty iconic historical weapon, recognisable today for its impressive service. Moving over to Battlefield 5 now, the Madsen machine gun actually has a really interesting bunch of stats, with it functioning a little bit differently to a lot of the other support LMGs. It deals less close range damage than all the others, with a max damage value of just 22, and this said damage starts dropping off immediately as soon as the bullet leaves the barrel, unlike the others which tend to hold onto their max damage figures for about 10 meters. With that said, the Madsen's damage is going to drop down at a much more gradual pace over distance, actually allowing it to become stronger than a lot of the others at range, eventually leveling out at 18 damage beyond 75 meters, which is also a slightly higher value than average. So basically, the gun's going to be weaker up close, but it's going to hit harder over distance, allowing it to retain more power over range. You're going to be at a distinct disadvantage up to 10 meters, with the gun taking an extra 5th bullet to kill. But beyond 30 meters, it'll actually take one less shot to kill than average, with 6 needed at most. Of course, it doesn't shoot very fast with a fire rate of just 514 RPM, matching up to the likes of the Brain Gun and Type 11, and this is going to restrict its effectiveness up close even more. But having that damage advantage over range definitely helps to make up for this, giving it some of the quickest LMG kill times against players further away. To further complement the Madsen's long-range potential, it's got quite a lot of stats to benefit stability and control, having the lowest vertical recoil value of all the light machine guns, set at a generous 0.55 degrees per shot, lowering its kick and preventing it from drifting upwards as much as some of the others. The Madsen also happens to have both its left and rightwards values set at 0.15, matching up to the Brain Gun, and these are generally some pretty good values to have, not only giving the Madsen a fairly predictable recoil pattern, but also one that's quite accurate and easy to manage when firing in longer durations, giving it some of the best levels of precision in the class. With the gun also firing at a slower rate, this also makes it a little bit easier to manage too, and having a higher than average muzzle velocity of 780 meters per second, which can be boosted even further to 880 meters per second, is yet another thing that's going to boost precision over longer ranges, as you won't need to lead moving targets quite as much, with bullets travelling faster than normal, and hitting slightly sooner. All good stuff to boost the Madsen's effective range. Though if that's not enough, you can reduce the gun's recoil even further with both the recoil buffer and ported barrel, lowering vertical and horizontal recoil respectively, and applying these can give the gun almost laser beam precision, giving you one of the best recoil patterns of all the fully automatic weapons in the game, especially when you set it up with the gun's bipod. Of course, the Madsen has to fall short somewhere, and with it only having the ammo capacity of 25 rounds, it's not exactly got tons of suppressive power in its base form, only really being able to gun down a couple of enemies or so before you'll need to reload. It's not too bad, with many of the other guns in the class also having the same capacity and less, but still something that can awkwardly interrupt long-range fights, more often than you'd probably like. Thankfully for the Madsen though, it does have access to extended mags, bumping that capacity up to a much more forgiving 40 rounds, letting it tackle more enemies and keep the bullets whizzing by for a bit longer, which is sometimes needed when dealing with targets over those further ranges. Reloads are basically the same speeds with both normal and extended mag options, and it'll take 2.6 seconds for a tactical reload, but 3.83 seconds when you're all out of shots, which are very similar times to the brain gun, if not just a teeny bit longer. Not the snappiest reloads, but not terrible, though you can reduce these times a bit with the quick reload specialization, helping to make them more manageable. And if you do choose to opt for both quick reload and extended mags, then the Madsen can be a much more effective LMG for suppressing fire, while keeping you engaged in the fight. Anyway, let's have a look at the Madsen's specializations. At the very top, you'll find quick reload and quick aim. And out of these two, I generally find quick reload to be a bit more useful, helping to get you back into the action a tad quicker in between gunfights. Quick aim would benefit aggressive use more so, but with the Madsen being more of a defensive weapon, it's probably not going to be quite as useful as it would be with some of the other guns. In the middle section, you'll be able to find recoil buffer and extended mags on the left, upping the ammo capacity while lowering the vertical recoil, though on the right, the custom stock and barrel bedding options, both there to lower the gun's base spread. If you chose quick reload in the first section, then you might want to go ahead and lower the gun's spread by heading down the right side of the tree, which makes sense with the Madsen already having a low vertical value too. Though just to make the gun better at sustaining fire, I tend to prefer opting for the recoil buffer and extended mags, letting you take on more enemies per reload and helping to ensure that you'll have enough ammo to finish a head-to-head battle with another player. Lastly, the Madsen's got high velocity bullets on the left, ported barrel on the right. Both very viable options that are going to play to the gun's strengths even more. With the Madsen being optimised for long ranges though, and with it already being quite accurate as it is, high velocity bullets can often give it a nice boost against targets running around in the distance, possibly making it a slightly more practical option, though you can't really go wrong with either of them here. So in conclusion, the Madsen machine gun is a weapon designed for taking on players beyond medium ranges, being a far more defensive gun overall, with pretty much all of its stats putting you at a disadvantage up close, while giving you the advantage against players further away. It does this by dealing less close range damage and having a fairly slow fire rate, giving it some really poor kill times in close quarters. But being able to hold on to more power over distance makes it far better suited here, complemented by the fact that the gun's also got some of the best recoil stats in the class, along with a built-in bipod, higher than average muzzle velocity, and specializations that are going to further boost its effectiveness over distance, to make it a really strong LMG against opponents further away. It doesn't initially have much suppressive power, only holding 25 rounds standard, though its ammo problems can be amended with those specializations. Though I guess a lot of people might be put off by the gun's magazine obstructing your view on screen, and possibly blocking off some sightlines. Unfortunately, something that can't be avoided. But generally, so long as you play to the gun's strengths and stick to a more defensive style of play, picking off targets from afar, then the Madsen's got pretty much everything you'll need to excel. Just try not to get too close to the danger, where the gun is often going to struggle to compete with the other weapons. So that's it for another one folks, hope you enjoyed the guide and learned a few things about the Madsen. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe for more content old, new and upcoming. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.